you punch your name and then punch the sign in button.
Wow, this is so exciting. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Okay, we're going to call the September 10th meeting of the Natural Resources Committee
All right.
to order, and we have a quorum since we have 5 members and we have 3 present. And the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from both June and July 2014.
I move that we accept the minutes as published of June and July 2014.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, then in the spirit of consensus, the minutes are passed. And we have no public present, so no public comments, and that brings us to the work plan. You think that it needs more work, the work plan, Richard?
Well, what do we have to look at? Do you have anything did Pete leave anything for us? Or?
I think it's on the computer, but I'm going to have to, well, he hasn't called it up, so we can't look it up. I don't know how you call it up.
Well, on the agenda, there's a call to order, approval of minutes, then the minutes and staff report. I'm not sure.
Yeah, which we can't get.
Okay.
But I don't see any links to the, let's see, click on documents. We do have something. Okay. We do have documents. Good. Revised bylaws. Click on that and then click on the document button.
Revised bylaw, okay.
And the revised and the final.
Oh, fine. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, okay, go to agenda.
No agenda. No. And
Then click
documents.
on this
Public
one,
comment.
adoption of the work plan. And then click on documents. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so the first, okay, so we can quickly go through this. It is,
Well, has anything changed since we?
not much, you know, I think it might have been tightened up a little bit, but I don't think any substantive changes have been made.
Well, I would move that we accept the bylaws.
Or not the bylaws, the work plan.
Are you in the work plan? I thought you said bylaws.
No, we're,
Oh, excuse me.
Bylaws are already accepted and established.
yeah,
We've done that 3
yeah,
months
it
ago.
should be 4A, adoption of the,
Oh, staff report or the final draft in our
final draft.
Ah, okay.
That's the one we actually want to accept
Okay.
or not.
I feel like we should get this done, unless there's some compelling reason not to get it done. I mean, I got it in hard,
Yeah,
hard copy, and I went through it, and it looked good to me.
Yeah, and I mean, we've gone through it pretty,
Right. Things that were deleted in the past are back, and I think it flows better. You guys did a lot of work on this when I was gone camping two months ago, but
yeah,
I think it's, for the purposes of our November meeting, which is 2 months out, with the city commission, we should have our work plan.
yeah, yeah. Well, we need to have it, and we have uses for it, and it will guide us in our future meetings.
So I'd like to move that we accept it
Okay,
and advance it.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second.
Good.
Is there any further discussion on this subject? And hearing none, in the spirit of consensus, I consider the work plan, activity planning sheet accepted.
Yep. Good.
Okay,
Good deal.
let's close that.
Adopted.
And the next one is the city goals discussion, which we really depended on Pete for, and because I don't know enough about him to hold a discussion on them.
Well,
There was a document that he
yeah.
probably has. Let's see, that's from Richard Craven. And that's potential items for city goals and or NRC consideration.
I thought those were good too, Richard.
And this is just some of the background material, but we need to compare that to Pete's presentation, which we can't get.
I did have a question.
Well, what was, excuse me, what was Pete's presentation? I guess I'm not clear.
Let's see. Well, it's NRC city goals discussion. I don't know enough about the plans and the past city goals to really comment on that.
We used to have that booklet right here that would guide us, but.
Yeah.
Well, basically, I think we're supposed to, if we have any goals, give them to the city by October, November of each year.
Correct.
And then if staff and planning, I suppose, agree with some of these goals, they would be put forward for the retreat that the city
Correct.
commission has in January.
Yeah,
as I understand
the
it.
new city commission, which
Yeah.
could have any
And now
up
we
to
did
3
not,
new members, you know.
we did not do this last year.
Right.
And so basically what I'm trying to do, I guess, is just to throw something out and see, you know, where we might get on it.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting that we adopt all of these, but just some, you know, food for thought for discussion purposes.
Yeah, and what I want to make sure, you know, this is a good list, and some of these need to be put forward, I think, but we need to know where the city is at in respect to these. Some of them, you know, they're going to be redoing the city codes, at which point, once they begin, discussing natural resources related code would be quite appropriate, but until they're ready
Yeah,
to tackle that,
right.
but of course, we're looking at a 2-year plan, I believe. I think they do that every,
Yeah. Are you looking on your
Yeah.
document file there? I've got 1 through 7. 6 being night skies, 7 being expand funding to Greater Oregon City watershed. Is that what you guys are looking at?
yep, exactly.
The only one I'm concerned about, I like Greater Oregon City Watershed Council, but I don't know that they receive any money from the city. They don't. They do grants like I do.
I think they're primarily grant-based.
Yeah.
But I'd like to change that, Richard, if you would be okay. Expand, enhance, and expand the support of the Greater Oregon City watershed, and just leave it like that with some description of why. You got a rationale there? I like it.
Well, basically, let's go to the top. Can we kind of go to the top and just
Sure.
go through these briefly?
Sure.
This discussion for a natural resources code came up at various times in our meetings, I think, and also various times with city staff. And I don't know if something is needed that's called the natural resources code or not. And I guess that's a discussion for Pete
Yeah, we need,
to help us along on that one.
Yeah.
But it seems like maybe not all natural resources are being protected in the manner that they should be. So I thought, okay, what else can be done?
yeah. Well, yeah, when the timing's appropriate, I think this is a really good
I
one.
actually think that the timing is more
Yeah.
appropriate than ever.
Well, sure, in general, but they've got to be
Yeah.
ready to deal with the code,
Right,
or
right.
nothing's going to happen.
But it still can be our recommendation that they consider it.
Yes. Well, yeah,
Right.
yeah, because they probably will start considering it within the 2-year
I mean, if we don't
timeframe.
suggest that this biennium, shall we say, it won't get consideration for another 2 years.
Right, and I think, yeah, so I think that's true. We need to move that forward.
Number two, you know, we have PRAC, we have the NRC, there's also a historical group,
Yep,
and it seems like we might have common issues from time to
I
time.
think you're
Oh,
right.
yeah.
And it just seems like there's not a lot of interaction among groups. And I think that could be made stronger, but I'm not sure how to do that. And I'm not sure if PRAC would want to do it or the city would want to do it.
The PRAC has indicated that they're quite willing, but somebody's got to go out of their way to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I went, you know, it's been a year now since I went to one of their meetings, and they agreed that it was a great idea. It's not in their bylaws like it is ours.
Yeah.
And so they're willing, and they see the need for it, because, you know, there is overlap, as we all know. So we just have to, I need to call up their president and move forward with that.
Okay.
Like we're supposed to. And that's really the first step.
Well, yeah, but I think I'm looking for a more stronger possibility that would be basically dictated by the commission in order to maybe combine some people on each board or something, or
It might be good to exchange members.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to volunteer for yet another board.
yeah. But you
that
notice on these items, I have an idea
Yeah.
listed, and then I have a rationale for it. You know, trying to think, okay,
Yeah.
here's kind of the way I'm thinking about it, basically. But again, I'm not sure how to make something like that happen, whether it's really needed or whether there's any interest in doing it. But I believe that there could be a lot of, synergistic activity for the city as a result of doing something like that.
That's
So-
correct.
But how it happens, I'm not exactly sure. On item 3, another idea, establish a natural resources job position for the city, and there's the rationale below it. And basically, I believe the city's talked about a forestry position
Correct.
of
That's,
some kind.
that is the city manager's idea.
I believe that it needs to be broader than forestry. On the other
Yeah.
hand, it's a matter of how you define forestry,
Yep.
also sometimes. So
Well,
maybe,
yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I think they should be able to find the correct person that could combine those skills. Because there's definitely foresters out there that are knowledgeable about ecology and so on,
yeah,
and natural resources in general.
yeah.
Yep.
And
But I guess my point here is that if we're talking about a forester, I don't think, from my point of view, that that's the right kind of person, a strict forester.
Yep.
I think it has to be a broad-based person
yeah,
to be really functional for the city.
yeah, and you're correct on that. And
Number 4, establish a volunteerism job position for the city. Now, Bob Roth has brought that up several
Many times.
and I picked that up from him,
Yep.
after he was talking about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think you're very correct.
And I've heard previous discussions that there wasn't a volunteerism person
was.
in the city at one
Mary
time.
Palmer.
And so basically, it seems like something like that should be looked at again.
Yep.
yeah, I agree
agree.
entirely. You know, and I brought that up independently from Bob, and we really haven't gotten, gotten very far with some of the city staff. I think Pete sees the idea as a good one, but it has to be, there's got to be acceptance of that position among city staff.
Well, what happened to the position before? What was the
Do you know what
situation
happened
there?
to it?
Yes, I do. Mary Palmer did both the Metro Grant Enhancement and Metro Enhancement Grant Administration, and then she coordinated volunteer efforts throughout the city, and the city under Mayor Dan Fowler was looking at ways to reduce costs, including getting the fire department off the general tax base rolls and get it independent of the city's budget, and they were looking at any ways they could cut money, and they cut her position along with getting rid of the fire department from being internally funded. So I think it was the fire department still continued, of course, in a new manner, but
Yeah.
Mary did a lot of things to solve problems when she was here.
It's possible a natural resource person would have that capability also.
Right.
The volunteerism.
Right.
That's a possibility,
And
But
it just seems like that would be,
Yep.
should be looked at again.
Right. Well, the other part
agree.
that I have to say, she acted out as an ombudsman. If people had problems, they came to her because she was the identified person to contact,
Okay.
not jumping on somebody from Public Works or whatever. She heard the concerns and then tried to resolve them internally. And now Lake Oswego has this kind of person, half-time. And if you go in the front of City Hall, Lake Oswego, here they are half-time from 9 until 1 every
Okay.
day. And they're there to help the citizens solve whatever problems there are. And they also coordinate some volunteer efforts. They combine two things together. Kind of neat idea, half-time.
Well, what were the volunteer efforts when Mary Palmer? When
Yes.
she was here? What
I would have to say she helped with all the aspects of the Oregon City cleanup from the standpoint of helping get things in order to do it, and then I and others led it, and there was a chairman from each year. I was a chairman for about 7 years, but the issue was she helped bring things together to make that major cleanup. I mean, 200 people showed up.
Yeah.
You're down to 40 now. We've got 60 in Gladstone. You know, Gladstone's
Okay.
a lot smaller than Oregon City. So that was one example, the Metro Enhancement Grant process, keeping that moving well and accounting for the monies. Michelle Benville does that now. And I believe she's about a third time, plus 2 other grants that she keeps track of, but she does not do volunteerism function.
Okay.
Yeah.
This next one is number 5,
Yes,
coordination of boards, committees for PRAC, NRC, and HRB, the Historic Review Board. And it kind of relates back to number 2 a little
Sure
bit.
does.
But it just seems like there ought to be some cross-fertilization there somehow.
Yeah.
And maybe there's not a lot of commonality at times, but
Well,
I think,
with PRAC, much of the time.
Yeah.
With the Historic Review Board, sometimes, I would say.
Okay.
Because, you know, if it's a historic home on a landscape city lot, you know, we're not going to have a lot of input.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
But if it's on something else, you know, acreage or something, then
okay.
we might have something.
Number 6, consider night light ordinance that expands the existing ordinance. Now that was Shaw Spady's idea.
Yeah.
And I believe, Mr. Chairman, you were going to try to talk to Shaw?
Yeah, I'm sure she'll be willing to give us at least some input on that.
Okay.
So you'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, excuse me, on number 7, expand the funding responsibilities for Greater Oregon City Watershed Council. We sort of hit that a little bit. And, you know, it seems to me that, and I don't know if it's the college or the Greater Oregon City Watershed Committee or some other organization, but it seems to me that there needs to be some kind of a coordinating group, you know, to kind of work with all the other groups in a recognized fashion on a continuing basis. And I'm not sure how something like that would be set up, but it seems to me to make it work wherever it is, that there could be funding from Clackamas Community College, Oregon City, Clackamas County, Metro, et cetera, to help support that kind of an effort.
Yeah.
And that may be back into the volunteerism thing a little bit too. You know,
It could
seems
be.
like
But you know, they have minimal paid hours there, and that's one of the limiting factors. Rita is doing more than she's being paid for.
yes, I know. Yeah.
And you know, funding for staff is the most difficult to come by, unfortunately. But that's
Yeah.
where they're at. They need funding for staff because they could quadruple her hours, and she'd be only half time, I believe.
Yeah.
Or not even that much, actually. No, actually, that's about right. That's about right. She's, what, 5 hours a week now?
Yeah.
So quadrupling it would be half-time, and that's, you know, but it's not as big as some other basin councils, but it's as big as some of the small ones. But all the small ones are having issues with funding,
Yeah.
as far as I could tell.
When you think about the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council, it's kind of interesting in that the city of Oregon City sort of sits at the top of the hill, so to speak, and everything drains off to the drainages in those watersheds, and it gets to the Willamette eventually.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it just seems like there should be some kind of a more coordinated effort, because you're talking about 40 or 50,000 people and several thousand acres, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm just using other, you know, the Clackamas River Basin Council as an example, which is, you know, much larger funding and staff, but they do that according to the nature of whatever grant they're wanting, or project they're wanting to carry out. You know, if it's something of interest to Metro and Soil and Water, they get pulled in as part of the planning of the project. But does Oregon City Watershed Council have the time to do that,
Right.
over and over again
Yeah.
to expand. If they could get more grants, they would expand.
Yeah.
And, but, it's not as big an area and so on. But, helping them to expand their presence in some way would lead to more grants
Well,
and so on.
Yeah.
For instance, we're being asked to design and execute a brochure on watershed health. That ought to be a contract right to them, payment right to them for services.
Yeah.
And what are we doing, among ourselves, designing something that should go out as a contract to them
Well,
to execute?
but you're going to have
That
to.
would help them, is my point.
Yeah, it would help them. I agree with that. But you're going to have to. That's something we could suggest to the city to
Right.
go talk about it at
Right.
their retreat.
Well, and
Because-
that's what these are for, these goals.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
see, I don't look at it as helping the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council, the way you're talking about it. I'm thinking more of a broader base of support for it that would, consist
Well-
of these entities and others.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, it could be Clackamas Community College, it could be another group, I don't know.
I just don't see the college funding them, but I could be wrong. I mean,
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, they could be the focus of it.
They
And
could.
It seems like they should be.
Right, I
frankly.
agree. But we could put, you've got this nice rationale, you've got the funding suggestions, but we could specifically say, the city's Natural Resource Committee recommends that
Yeah,
earned income opportunities we feel could help them establish a better funding base, could include creation of a watershed, whatever it was, water quality brochure. and-
well, now, Jerry.
I'm just
this
suggesting.
This is not to get a better funding base necessarily.
But
See,
that's what it says.
you're talking about the funding, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about the organizational side of it.
Well, yes, I know, but number 7 starts out, expand the funding and responsibilities for the Greater Oregon
Yes.
City Watershed Council.
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
or
that-
some other group,
Yeah.
And that's
see,
the-
part of the thing is that whoever does it is going to need more funding
Right.
to take on
Yes,
more work.
they will.
So the two are the same, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my point, I guess, is that we have something in our work plan, I believe, that talks, or one of the things that we're supposed to be looking at, creating a couple documents this year that's going to take us a lot of time,
Yeah.
that they could be given a contract to do.
Yeah,
And that would
but-
help them with funding.
Yeah, again, we have to talk the city into
I know.
the funding for that.
Right.
But
Well, we don't have, we just have to talk about.
Or
the
maybe
idea.
Metro.
Yeah.
Maybe Metro.
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
Metro's a very competitive process, but you're correct, that's another thing we could do.
Yeah.
I would like to see them have a stronger role, Richard,
Yeah.
because they are the logical group. You're
Yeah.
correct.
Yep.
The Environmental Learning Center, if it comes back with some staff, would be good too, but it doesn't exist in a staff setting yet.
Right.
So, you're right, this is the group that exists right now that has citywide interests.
Yeah. And they've got a fair amount of influence. The mayor's on the board, and
Right.
And they want to get stuff done.
Right.
And that's what watershed councils are there to do. And helping them accomplish more is
Right.
them and someone else would be real good. So it's just a matter of how to implement it and give the proper rationale to the city to help pursue that.
Now, Doug DeHart, I believe, had a couple of other items, and are they included in here?
Well, I have to go through it.
Well, they're not in, let's see, one is, I think, is the night sky, but are they in the agenda someplace?
I'm looking. I don't see his name. There's a spot for member reports, but it doesn't detail what those are.
Okay, well, maybe he can flesh those out next time then.
Yeah.
When he comes back.
Flyer.
Yeah. And so those are real good ideas, all of them.
Well, I was just trying to write something to the number 7 here
Yeah. Good.
as a
Go right
recommendation.
ahead.
And,
Okay. Well, do we want to put that on hold till next time?
Yeah.
You really want to?
Well, I mean,
I want to suggest some language here
okay, if you want to.
for number
yeah.
7 here. And that would be following everything you had, Richard, which I agree with. And then you talked about funding. If you want to keep that in there, if you don't, it's up to you. But
Well-
here's a specific recommendation from us, that the Natural Resource Committee recommends that projects such as brochures and educational flyers, development and execution be accomplished by the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council with funding from the city. That's what I would say. Because I could see us, look how much time we fool around with the, tree ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting in the minutia of, this
Well,
big,
in a
Can you
committee.
bring that back to the meeting next time, or get it to
Oh,
Pete?
sure.
with,
I
I
maybe
can give it
just-
to you, give it to you and.
We'll email it out,
Yeah.
so everybody
Oh,
has it
yeah,
ahead of time,
okay.
yeah.
I mean, these are discussion items, as I would understand it, but for,
Yeah, they are.
the next
Yeah,
month, I guess.
we're not
next
in
month.
position to really
Yeah.
decide tonight.
No.
All right, so I'll give this to Ron.
And you're going to talk to Shaw about the night sky?
Yeah, I got
Issue,
a note
yeah.
on that, I need to do that. Okay,
Okay.
anything else to read there?
Nope,
Okay.
looks good to me. All right, so I'm gonna give that to you.
Okay, so then there's new business, and first one, 5A,
There you go.
is, I think there's some documents. Trees in Oregon City, those are the, yeah, let's go to 5A, and, which is down.
Oh, I get it. Sorry.
Yeah, goes
Oh,
right
okay,
there.
right, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
How bad?
And there's a couple of documents that, and there's, I'll just open up the
I'll get it,
street
I'll get it.
tree, and that is, I should
No.
tell you how many pages. Looks like three pages.
Are you in trees in Oregon City? Is that the
I
one
can
you-
jump there. I started with the other one.
Okay.
Which one did you get?
I just screwed it up. Oh, what did I do?
Well, where do you want us to be, Mr. Chairman?
Well, let's go to the trees in Oregon City. That's good enough.
Trees in Oregon City? Look at document.
Yeah, there you go. Trees in Oregon City. You got to select it again. No, here.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's it. All right.
Guide for planting, maintaining, removing, and replacing trees in Oregon City. And it's only not even 2 years old. Oops.
Well,
Okay.
is this something that Pete needs to be here to discuss, apparently?
Well, it would give us an advantage, that's for sure. Because we don't have time to read this ourselves tonight and then make intelligent comments, this and the other one. But just reviewing it real quick, it gives a rationale for protecting trees and growing trees.
Well, I believe on the agenda it says discuss improvements to the tree care brochure.
Right.
And so I don't think I can look at that until what the improvements are.
Well,
And so-
there's, that's what we have to come up with. One thing is like there's a thing on value of trees. There's some advanced tools available online now that could be added in here as a link. And that would be good.
So Pete is looking for our suggestions?
Yeah, and another thing is that trees in the front yard are what really boost the value of the property, and less so in the backyard, believe it or not. And, but there's ways of valuing individual trees now that are pretty interesting. And I think that should be incorporated into this. Okay, it mentions the Okay, tree removal permits are free, that's good.
Oh, by the way, no, it's not exactly related, but Phyllis Gehring, she nominated her tree. We approved it. Her son, Paul, I believe it's his name, lives in the Gehring house. Well, I was going up and down the steps on Saturday exercising, and I went by the house, which is right next to McLaughlin House, and I heard this tremendous clatter, clump, and whatever. He fell off the roof, 35 feet to the ground,
Oh, that's
to
the
the
same.
concrete.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess he has survived, but not by much. You know,
Who is
That's far enough to be
Phyllis's son, and he's you know. So anyway, had nothing to do with the tree, but boy, it really woke me up in a minute. If I hadn't called 911, I'm not sure nobody knew he was out. So. Well, it looks pretty, I don't know.
It's fairly comprehensive, but I'm sure there's things to.
I don't see anything here about solar access, which is missing.
Yeah.
Maintaining and or enhance or shade values, where to place the tree, that you should consider that. I mean, they show you a couple design things, but nothing that would help you correctly place
Let's
the
see,
plant.
15 feet from street lights, 5 feet from fire hydrants, which isn't much.
Those are all Cody kind of things, but
Yeah.
from a
20
design
feet from it.
standpoint,
Yeah.
the kind of tree you might suggest
right.
can reduce your air conditioning requirements.
There's actually specific areas to plant a tree that would maximize the value that the tree adds.
Yeah.
And, it can be thousands of dollars in increased property value, so, And this actually has more about removing trees than, and then there's a whole bunch of questions. Heritage trees. Should actually have some of the heritage trees in this.
It's interesting. City of Oregon City, what your resource that you can talk to. City of Oregon City Code Enforcement. Call to file a complaint for a missing tree.
For a missing
That's what
tree?
it says.
I
Call
don't
to-
know what they mean by missing. Does
I
you
do
mean
believe
somebody
it.
cut it down?
I
or?
believe that needs to be modified. Call to file a complaint regarding the improper or illegal or removal
Or-
of a tree.
Or could it be the developer didn't plant them?
I don't know.
It's pretty
That's a
vague.
very misleading statement.
Well,
Well,
it's
it's
more likely.
unclear, not,
It's more likely to be in a subdivision that's probably 10 years old, 15 years old,
yeah.
where the tree has grown, the root has grown so large that it's messed up the concrete for the sidewalk,
Yeah,
and therefore the property owner removed the tree and didn't replace it with anything.
yeah, they're supposed to get a permit to do that, according to other parts of
Yeah.
this. Friends of Trees. I'd like to see the city get an active program going with Friends of Trees. To get more trees planted, because they'll give you the darn trees, which is a real benefit to the city. Okay, well, I've got a few ideas. the following trees are native to Oregon City, and they have non-native ones in there.
Really?
Yep. Northern red oak is not,
No. definitely
and
not.
bur oak, American elm.
Those are all ones that David likes.
Yeah, but they're not native.
Okay, what would you like to do with this whole thing, Mr.
Well,
Chairman?
I would say we need to bring ideas back. I've got a few ideas. I've been making
Yeah.
notes here.
Okay.
And discuss it at a future meeting and see what, Pete may have some idea from the city about what they want done, which we don't know what that is.
True.
So,
Okay.
okay, and I'm going to look at the removal guide. That's going
I
to
was looking at that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's, a lot of this is from stuff we worked on at least somewhat earlier. Yeah, I'd have to go through this in more detail. See if it seems easy enough for people,
Yep.
So I'd say let's look at this
All right.
and look ahead to the next meeting.
Okay. All right.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay.
None.
And let's see, trees in Oregon City. We already looked at that. And then there's, the next thing is the Fall Heritage Tour.
Okay. One for each of them. One for Richard.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
All right, Jerry.
This was an example of last year's, and I'm suggesting the same thing. I'm going to start off by saying I can't do this in October. There's not enough lead time here. October is a month away, not even that, 2 weeks away. And I've got another major event I'm in charge of with that river tour, bringing the Portland Spirit into Oregon City. So I would prefer that we look at January and February as a time to do this, because that's a low involvement time for people. And when I used to do classes at the Environmental Learning Center and such, or special workshops, we used to get pretty good turnouts. As a matter of fact, you and I did one at the Armory on the landscape of that park
Yeah,
up there in February.
Waterboard.
It was pretty quite well attended, Waterboard Park.
yeah.
But the idea was that we embark at a point. In this case, Blue Heron was our suggested embarkation area. That was last year. And then we went to a number of different places. If you go to page 2, it showed the itinerary of where we went. I'd like to actually do a lot of this again, and maybe any of you might have ideas of some other things we could do, but we looked at, from the Museum of the Oregon Territory, at the overlook of the falls, because it's an important thing to do. A falls overlook would work too. And we proceeded to the hilltop via South End Road. We went to Brighton Overlook, which is a beautiful overlook of the city's lay of the land and the river and so forth. We then proceeded to the upper part of Oregon City, out Leyland Road, to the Ainsworth House, looked at the heritage tree that is there. We were on a tight timeline, and I guess I would give it more leeway now. We were doing all this between 9 and noon. And either we need more time or we need to cut the itinerary, but the whole intent was to look at natural resources, okay? Heritage areas and resources of the city, all right? And so we ended up coming down from the college. Were you on this, Richard? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
Okay, but Shaw and others were, and we were back down to a dedication stop at a sculpture which has now been there for 1 year at the entrance to Clackamas Park, and we were done by 12:30. And then they all had inclusion of support materials, and the support materials follow on page 3: heritage resource tour, free public event, blah, blah, blah. They wanted me to register people, which I did. But then we went into things like Tom McCall, and I had mentioned that before. This is things that John Borden helped me with. Who were Tom McCall's key people? It's interesting because in March is Tom McCall's birthday, March 13th. So if we tied this as an advance event and had a little bit about Tom McCall as a theme, I think it would draw people's interest. And why would we want to do that? Because LB Day was in Oregon City. If you look at the backside of the so-called Tom McCall era, LB Day was here a lot, cleaning up that mill, the Blue Heron, we call it now. It was called Publisher's Paper then. But these other people were instrumental in setting things up, such as Bob Straub's Greenway program, which the governor let him put together. And yet he became a Democratic governor later on. I mean, McCall included a lot of people that would get things done. Hector McPherson was a farmer that he got involved with his inner circle who founded the Land Use Conservation, LCDC efforts. A farmer, no less. So we went over this kind of thing, and then we spent time with John, who's really good at this, discussing the pulp and paper industry and what McCall had to say about it. And there's some initiatives that were discussed, all these things that McCall did as initiatives, protected the ocean beaches finally permanently. It was kind of there before, but now it's really established, and defined what the zones would be that would be protected versus those that weren't. Established the highway fund to set aside money for bicycle lanes. The Oregon deposit bill still is a nickel to this day, was established during his era. So I think we could gain a lot of interest by having that as one of our themes. And then the water cleanups that he initiated. I'd like John to be a part of this. That's one thing, because he's good at relating facts. And then we go on to some of the cultural history things, which you see some maps there. That's one of your maps, Richard, that you dug up, looking at the Clackamas River connection to the Willamette and the settlements people don't think about, because we can actually look at where old Clackamas City roughly was located. And we can
Under the freeway.
Yep. Talk about Hiram Straits donation land claim, which is everything. That bottom land that we're talking about that includes Clackamas Cove. We could this time visit the Straits Cemetery and look at some graves of very important people that never get discussed. And that's been enhanced. A chance to look at it.
Where is that located?
It's located right next to Kaufman Excavation. And they're right on Clackamas River Drive.
Okay, yeah.
Just short of my place.
Right. And those people in that area have done a really good job of cleaning up their areas. We could then look at the major flood issues that impacted this area. And this is where I'd like to involve Ken Cameron. He's a USGS geologist, now he's a DEQ geologist. He's a wonderful presenter. And let him present a geologic kind of overview as we go along, because he's very exciting to listen to. And then end up with some of the things that are important that have relationship to the Blue Heron Mill site, and some discussion. So it involves cultural history with natural resource issues. And these were handouts I put together last year and gave to people. All right. And then the bus cost, last two pages, are Blue Star bus lines. I use them a lot because they're inexpensive and they're very high quality equipment. Cost $463 last year. And we had 35 people on board. If you look at the register, last two pages, were the 35 people or so that were on board. They were all types of people, including a couple major developers, meaning the Cove developer. By this time, February, March, we should know that things are going to happen or they're not. And they included another person talking about Park Place Village, but it'd be nice to include some of the development interests, and Margie Hughes could help us a lot getting them on board. So now I'm willing to do this if I can get repaid for my 1-year-old debt, which is it's just the principle of the whole thing. And I've turned in a bill 4 times now to Pete, and Pete tells me it's stalled in the community development director's file, I guess, or something. And I was also getting calls from the bus company for a while, why hasn't the bill been paid? And that's because my name was on the execution of the set-aside time. How do you say that? The reservation of the bus. But that got taken care of. I appreciate that. So,
Yeah, now you know.
yeah. But my measly $43 bill was still out there. But I guess if I had to eat it, I will, but it just seems like 1 year later, we want some handout materials. We want to do this right. If we make it exciting and have a theme, I think we'll have a full bus. As a matter of fact, I think we'd have 2 full buses, but not that we need them. But so what do you all think?
Well, it's a good concept, and it's, similar to last year, and that worked real well.
Yeah. Well, meets our goal 1, which was involvement in public education and
Right.
educating the public.
Right.
And I think just natural resource education is good, but when you involve the cultural history component, which is important to the city, you'll draw another element. And I think that cross-pollination is kind of good. So,
Okay, there is a staff document on this.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
here is.
Well, it doesn't say very much. It's basically just going over the what you've already said in very brief terms.
Oh,
That
Okay.
you and I will organize and
all right.
date and time, schedule and route. You've got that, and cost. You've already covered the rental, the cost of it, any safety considerations, and of course there'll be refreshments of some sort.
Right. We did that last year too.
Yeah.
Pete did a lot of work on this. I really appreciated his help. So, and it was.
So the city did not provide the brochure here last? was that-
No, everything you see was stuff that I put together. Except for the very
Okay.
front page, they did take a different form I had and changed it.
Okay.
And everyone had a packet with the timing and the documents that we wanted them to refer to, and we will probably want to change that, but, and then I kept the master roster of people calling in, so I knew what the numbers were. I was kind of sweating that people would show up, but they did.
But then you had a $43 bill or something?
Was for copying a
Copying?
bunch of these for
Okay.
40-some people, enough for 40. And some donuts and stuff like that, I think, I don't remember. But anyway.
Is it possible the city could provide the brochure?
Somebody's got to do the work, put it together.
Right, but I mean, like on the tour outline, that needs a lot of editing.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with that. It's just the issue of my schedule. I can do it at one place and get it done, including all the support materials. It's just easier for me. But whatever. I don't care how it gets done. All right. Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, if I could get it together and then they could do the printing, that would be fine. But last year that was like 10 pages of content times 40. That's 400 pieces of paper.
Yeah,
So.
I got it. I would like to ask you something about the map, the 1852 map.
Yep.
It says Indian graves.
Graves.
Do you know anything about that?
I'm
No.
the.
When it means graves, what does that mean, graves?
I think that it was sky burials where they
Okay.
put them in on planks or canoes, and they were all destroyed by the early pioneers.
Okay, I was curious whether or not there were actual, subsurface graves or
No,
what.
as far as I know, everything I've read has been that they did the sky burial
Okay.
route.
Well, and they also did them in ways that they would be swept away by the floods, too. Right?
Not
Memaloose
no.
techniques?
No, not that I know of.
On the Columbia, that's how they did it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I'm not sure.
as far as I know, it was up above, but it's
Okay.
pretty indefinite, that map. It doesn't
Sure.
really, could have been down on the river itself.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's Herb Beale's annotated map.
Okay. Yeah, and
You see this, where it says Rainierson, mouth of the Clackamas,
yeah,
Rainierson donation land claim, that was a really big land claim. And Hiram Strait basically had half of all the lower region of Oregon City under his domain, 640 acres. From
right. They
Quite a large
were
area.
trying to get rid of the land as quickly as possible, and the whole Oregon
Yep.
City area went in 640 acre chunks.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I'm not sure about those Indian graves, Richard. Except the powwow tree is right in that location, roughly.
yeah,
And
and
the powwow
that,
tree was a gathering point for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
You know, we were coming up with a theme for this river tour thing, and the bus tour part. We've got 21 different things we talk about from OMSI to Oregon City now on October 14th. We get to Gladstone, and the whole theme was merry old England. Everything in Gladstone is named for the Lord and Prime Minister Gladstone.
yeah,
who
well,
I finally found a bunch of information on him. He's quite an interesting guy.
oh yeah, Harvey Cross was a lover of England, and
Yeah.
wanted everything to reflect that, including the names.
Right. Do you
And-
see the Lord's wetland here, the Boardman?
Yeah, yeah. Those,
That was quite an extensive feature.
well, those are still there too.
Yeah, then they are. You're right. But I mean, it's a major feature, probably an old cutoff channel of the Clackamas, don't you think?
Well, it actually follows. Well, yeah. There's dips that could have been, or they could have been Missoula flood relics. The water coming
Yeah.
over Oatfield, then digs out a gouge, comes up, digs out another gouge, and
Do
that's
you see this little volcanic feature he has on this
Yeah.
map above Quezon?
yep.
I wonder what that is.
Well, that's where that water tank is.
Oh,
It's the highest ground.
Mm-hmm,
And the farmers didn't want that rocky thing.
and
but-
notice that perched wetland up on top, going down Oatfield a ways.
Yeah.
You see that? And that is up there too. They've had real
Yep.
trouble.
Well, now the volcanic, is that Mount Scott?
No.
Where would
That's-
Mount,
Those are just little things that are, at most 100 feet high. Probably not even that much.
oh,
I don't know if you know the back road heading north from Gladstone, but
Yeah.
there's a big green water tank up there on the left as
Right.
you're heading north.
That's all.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
that's where that is.
Oh,
Webster,
okay,
Webster
okay.
going up.
Yeah, so it's just a high
All right.
point on the ridge.
Tri-State
Oatfield
Baptist
Ridge.
Church is right there too.
Oh yeah,
But
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that Herb was so good at, he was a planner, a trained planner. That's why Herb was so good at taking information and assembling only the points that were important.
yeah.
Look at all the detail they left out to let you look at the important things that he felt
Yeah.
were important. And that was his. I ran across it today. This is not related to our meeting, but here's the diary of Hecate Asita, 1772 voyage off the Oregon coast, and nobody knew where he went. Well, Mr. Herb Beals went to his logs. They were all in Spanish, and computed from his logs, after he translated, where he was on these days.
yeah.
And here's a complete set of maps of his journey, which is just amazing. Herb was just a wonderful person. He died last year.
Yeah.
He founded
Unfortunately,
the Gladstone Historical Society. Just a wonderful man.
yeah, he was always ready to help too
Yep.
with his
Always
information.
ready.
So
Yep.
okay,
Okay. Wow.
so that's so you're thinking actually into next year.
I'd like to do sometime in late January or February and precede Tom McCall's birthday on March 13th. And
Okay.
the mayor's telling me that last year they were going to try to do something special for Tom McCall's birthday because I think he's under talked about lately. And but they didn't do it. And he asked me to figure out a way to do a river cruise during the winter. I said, well, hey, you want a winter cruise? That's pretty neat. Inside a covered vessel, it could be really nice. But we could precede it with this. We could actually have a Tom McCall
Well,
little bit of a series that
if you waited for just before his birthday,
yeah.
then spring will have sprung. People will actually be
All
real
right.
willing to
All
come
right.
out.
That's a good idea. You don't want to get into spring vacation though. They're gone.
No, you have to.
So we'd have to precede it. Spring vacation is normally the second week in March, I think.
Okay, so you'd have
So,
you're
yeah.
looking at the first week in March then,
Yeah.
or you'd have to go after that.
Yeah. So if
Okay.
you would like to have this move forward, that's where I feel I need. And then
Okay.
I guess I'd like, for the record here, the committee to ask that we get this past debt taken care of, if you would feel comfortable. It's just an oversight, no big deal. That's the way I see it.
It's
Yeah, I think, if there's an outstanding invoice, the city, obligated themselves to pay to support the event, I think it should be paid.
Yep, yep.
So,
So we're a little short-handed. We're supposed to get that sounded like a motion. Do you consider that?
oh, yeah, okay, if you want to do it that way,
Yeah,
sure,
we-
I'd move to getting paid.
All right.
The $43 or
And,
thereabouts.
I'll second my
Okay.
my dilemma.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I mean, that's why the chair isn't supposed to do that, so.
Yeah,
So hearing no further discussion, we'll forward that recommendation to the city
that
council.
was a little self-serving, Jerry, that you seconded that.
Well, but who else? You could have seconded it after you had firsted it, you know?
Yeah, but
Okay.
anyway.
All right, what else we got here?
Okay, well,
So,
we got,
let me, excuse me, just,
Yeah.
okay, so we had a motion passed.
Yeah.
Now what?
I
There's a
will,
$43 bill.
I will
somewhere, so what-
contact Pete first, perhaps the mayor as well.
Whatever, I think it'll
Yeah.
get taken care of real quick.
Well, you know,
That's
it
what I
needs,
think.
you know, we need to rattle a cage or two.
Right,
And Pete hasn't had a lot of luck, but I think I should include him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, no problem.
And I think I'll give the mayor a call.
Yep, good.
Okay?
All right, and the bill exists, I've given it to him 4 times with the
Right.
documentation, so.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Then the
Then
next,
I'll be able to eat next month.
all right, the next thing on the agenda is member reports. Does anybody have anything
I want to know who polluted Singer Creek.
polluted Singer
You don't
Creek?
know about this, but
No.
2 days ago, I was going up and down the steps like I do, and I meet you with your dogs. He's coming down quite often, and here, the Singer Creek's just pristine, clear, as I
Yeah.
get up there. And the third time I get up there, maybe I'm hallucinating, but all of a sudden it turns brown right in front of me, and then it turns to mud.
Was there any rainfall or anything?
No. And so, and it continued to basically, high turbidity levels, and all the water, it's one by one, they turned on a brown look as it cascaded down the face of the Singer Creek Falls situation. So I called 911 asking if they could check, and they said, we're going to call Public Works and report it. And I believe that's what happened, and I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, that would be John Lewis to talk
I
to
don't
then.
think he necessarily did it. I don't mean that.
Well, I know, but he would know what
But
was
they
going
would
on.
check it out, so.
Yeah.
But I thought in the middle of the summer, in the low water time, if there's any juveniles in there of any type, it's not good for your water quality to
Yeah,
go to.
there's not going to be.
Worse than a Willamette during the winter, okay?
Yeah, that's not a high fish stream, I don't think.
However, just
But there is wildlife.
since you said that, it was a good point. But I want to clarify something. The Public Works folks last week were in there with a giant suction machine with a foot diameter intake,
Yeah.
cleaning out each of the basins all the way down to the bottom.
Oh,
And I asked
interesting.
them, so you're cleaning them? Yes, down to concrete stone. I said, oh, okay. Have you found anything along the way? And said, well, yes, we found large trout or salmon, we're not sure. And we took them to the river. We were thinking about barbecuing them first, but we didn't.
How the heck did he get up there?
I think, trout could be in that upper reaches of Singer
Some
Creek
Yeah,
Basin.
it'd have to be a trout. It couldn't,
Yeah.
because it's just piped after
Right.
the fall.
Now, we used to raise salmon there at the Environmental Learning Center. We
Yeah.
put fingerlings in there and let them, feed because it's really good water quality and cool. Then they go to the river, knowing that they would never come back. It wasn't our intention to have them return.
Yeah.
Just a rearing type setting. But
Okay,
anyway, so
so I might just mention the Gladstone restoration of the lowest portion of the Clackamas up to and including along the Willamette is going to receive some major attention. Probably starting next year, everything's fallen in place. There's a lot of cooperating agencies. There's
Right.
major state money going into it. And we have contacted the mayor and made the city of Oregon City aware that we could do that here too, meaning Clackamas Park and perhaps
Right.
areas upstream. But the money is available now. There's new sources of money that it's for the Willamette Greenway, for enhancing the Willamette. That includes the lower reaches of its tributaries, which is the area. So there's that money, the Metro money, and so on. So
this is
lots.
your Basin Council leading
Yeah, this is our Basin Council.
Okay.
And
Good.
But the city's, again, it's the same story. The city has to decide they want to go ahead with it. So
Uh-huh.
we won't know until next year. You know, Doug Neely is greatly in favor, but
Right.
he won't be mayor
What
next
kind
year.
of recommendation could we make to advance this
Well,
for consideration?
why don't I get a formal presentation by the Basin Council?
That would be good.
Yeah, and then we could,
That'd be really good.
and
Talk about the lower
and then
Dole
then we
Beach
can include
project.
that recommendation,
Yeah, good.
You know, on our main report.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Now, didn't we ask at our previous meeting to hear from someone about the relocation and/or whatever disposition of the boat ramp at Clackamas Park?
The
I
last,
thought we asked that.
yeah, we did ask that. The scuttlebutt directly from the mayor is that it's history. It's going to go somewhere else.
Does that mean they'll remove the residual
Yes.
device?
Everything will be taken out, is what he was indicating. Now, it's not a final decision yet, but that's the direction they're heading.
Huge amount of money.
Because, you know, you look at that place, and the main river channel, it goes right to the base of that ramp, if you look at it right now, now that it's low.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's happened there, I think I explained this maybe to Brian, maybe not to you, Richard, is it is impending okay, it's imposing itself as a hard structure, and now Dole Beach gravel accumulation touches it. And because it won't allow the river to cut above it, because of that hard surface, it has shallowed the river to 2 feet right
Yeah.
now, tonight at low water this
Yeah,
afternoon.
I've been down there to look at it.
Right, but on the lower side of it, it's 10 feet deep,
Yeah,
clear down to the mouth. So whatever channel existed, it's leading to the loss of a channel because it's impeding the natural cutting that the river would do to try to restabilize itself.
yep, yep.
Anyway,
Okay.
Okay.
a lot of money went into that,
Yeah.
I will tell you.
Anything else from anyone?
No.
What
Okay.
about, I want to talk about the meteor that almost hit us.
It did hit, there was some town somewhere that got hit by a meteor.
Well, it was 25,000 miles from us passing last,
Oh, that
We-
big one. This might have been a piece of it, they don't know.
was that recently that was seen? Fragment?
Right when that comet was going by. Made it like a 40-foot hole in this, right next to a town. I forget where, it's all over the news
Oh, I
right
didn't know
now.
that, wow.
Yeah, they don't know for sure, they're just guessing that it came
So
from that.
was it a cometary object that was passing nearby?
They're still
or-
digging.
Okay.
They're still digging. It's a
But I
big,
mean, the
yeah.
object that was 25,000 miles, was that a cometary object? Or do they know?
I
don't
don't
think it was a
know.
comet. I think it was an asteroid or something.
It may have been.
Okay.
You know, they have
Well, anyway.
to. Okay, so we don't have any staff communications because staff isn't here. Future agenda items are quite a bit of what we've talked
Yep.
about tonight is going to be talked about some more. I will see if I can get a member from the Basin Council out for the next meeting because we need to move on this. We need to, and give us some fuller idea, you know, the whole
Well,
board of
That's
what they're looking at.
I'd like to hear that. The other thing was, we did have on the agenda for tonight, potentially, if it could be arranged, a presentation by Randy, Tyler, Ed Darrow. That was in the discussion that we had last month. We were asking for that.
Yeah.
And it's being requested. What happened to that? Do we know?
I haven't heard a word.
So we don't want to lose that, do we? As an old business item?
Okay.
You know, either to follow your presentation or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd sure like to know how they're doing and how we can help them, encourage the process.
Yeah, well, they've got to be certain enough that they should be finding out if they can get past those barriers that they've got,
Yeah.
because they had a couple of them that were
Right.
serious. So, and
Okay.
Is it possible to encourage Shaw to come to the committee and talk to us about? the
that's
next guy?
that's a possibility.
Up in that dark
We
sky
know
thing?
we know that we want to put that forward, so
Yeah,
it would
yeah.
be opportune for her to come to the
Agreed.
yeah.
Agreed.
Thinking.
Okay.
So what's happening with the vacancies exactly?
I have not gotten a report, and they still have it as 2 openings.
Did anybody apply or?
I don't know. That's what staff is supposed to fill us in on, and
Okay,
I thought he, up until a couple hours ago, Pete was
Yep.
going to be here, so I didn't. But it's been on their website for quite a while, but it's up there again. And there was a news article that included it, along with a number of other openings in different boards.
Yep. Saw that.
Yeah. So anyway,
Next month.
next month. Let's write that down. Openings. Okay, so we'll be busy beavers, but we need to decide what we're going to suggest to the city next meeting, is what I think. Because that's September, and we're supposed to get it there by October, and we've got to craft the actual writing. And if possible, I'd like to have that all decided next meeting.
Sounds good to him.
That,
Good
you
move.
know, I think that's unrealistic because nobody's really commented on things particularly.
Right.
And it seems to me that we need to have a full discussion on this.
Yeah,
But I understand the critical nature of the schedule also.
if we wait till October, then
We're behind
we have to
the-
immediately start writing.
All right.
Yeah.
So
So I'm just,
yeah. Well, yeah, I can see your point.
yeah, I mean, that's why I sent that out in August,
Yeah.
and trying to get some input back, but I don't see a lot of input. So I'll leave it with you, Mr. Chairman, to
Okay.
figure it out.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
Okay, anything else? I think we've got a pretty full agenda already for next meeting.
Sounds like a German.
Okay, let's adjourn our meeting, and
Good.